Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Sunday assessment from the view from the Medway. A little bit later than planned because we had a mammoth journey from Scotland yesterday after seeing my mum, my sister, and nephews. But we are back, and as Martin Tyler would say, it's live. Davina McCall would also say, we are live on Channel 4, please do not swear. Here to discuss everything Gillingham from the weekend's game against Morecambe. 4 became 3, 3 became 2, and I'm glad 2 didn't become 1 because I'm really not a fan of the Spice Girls. So without further ado, I'm delighted to be joined by EFL Expert, the EFL Debate, and a massive Toy Story fan apparently, Gabe Sutton. How are you, mate?
Hi, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. Really glad to be on the podcast.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you, mate. It's good to have you. Thank you very much for coming on. So we are going to dive straight in. We'll get straight into a certain Mr. #Dack is back. The king has returned to his throne, as we would say. I think Luke teaching summed that up quite nicely the other day. So what are your feelings about the move and the previous with him?
I understand why there's a huge amount of excitement, and I do see a world where if Dack can rediscover some of the momentum and some of the confidence and some of the sharpness and fitness and all the rest of it, that he will be one of the best players in League Two, if not the best, because technically speaking, he's streets above this level. And maybe with the resources that Gillingham have got, you're in a position where you probably can afford to take that risk. I guess the reason why I don't place myself in the same camp as maybe a lot of people around this signing, which I really do understand why lots of people do go on the more excited and sort of can't believe we've got on that kind of side of the spectrum. What I'm a bit apprehensive about perhaps is that he's averaged 6.5 league starts per season over the last 4 years. So he's not got much momentum in his career, and that's not his fault so much because a lot of that's been down to long-term injuries, which must have been horrible to deal with. But to sort of say he was one of the best players in the Championship in the 18-19 season under Tony Medway, to sort of say that he's immediately going to come back, storm back and sort of be one of the best players in League Two. 4 or 5 years is quite a long time even for a player of Dack's ability to sort of just get that confidence and mojo back. So that's where I'm a little bit apprehensive, because if I look at a completely different type of player in Richie Smallwood, he started 40 games for Hull City in the 21-22 campaign, and that was in the Championship. And you wouldn't say Richie Smallwood has pulled up trees at Bradford over the last 2 or 3 years since signing. You would say that maybe he's looked a little bit struggled for mobility at times and possibly looked a little bit off the pace, as well as bringing some quality. But you'd say he's been a 6 out of 10. You wouldn't say he's been an 8 or 9. So which is why I think there is a world where it could work out brilliantly with Bradley Dack, because I know he's got ability, and he was he's one of the best players to have played in a blue shirt at Priestfield. But I just feel like I'm going to temper some of that enthusiasm a little bit, because he's got there's not much momentum in his career.
Yeah. I mean, it's not very. I mean, you can't really judge him where he had two ACL injuries with Blackburn. Then he moved to Sunderland and he had a hip injury. I mean, there is a slight argument for his case where I would think, ACLs, that could happen to anyone. At any given time, it's not necessarily an ongoing injury. It could be.
No, it's not so much this fear that he's going to get injured again. It's the fact that he's not necessarily got that sharpness in his career, that momentum in his career. Like, it's a completely different proposition. The Bradley Dack existed 5 years ago, and the Bradley Dack now might still have loads of quality, And like I say, you've got the money where you can afford to take that sort of risk. I just feel like there's a possibility that it doesn't work out, which is why. Do you know what? I'm more excited sometimes about the kind of the up and coming signings, the players that have signed with some momentum in their career. Those are the ones that maybe excite me more. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, like, you know, you like the Sam Giles and stuff of the Gillingham world. You know, he's gone on loan and stuff. Like, got Sam Gales, and do you know what? I'm really excited. I'm really excited about Joe Bode. Like, I don't know why, but like a lot of people have said to me, you know, oh yeah, I don't think he's League Two level. You know, maybe like National League South, or something like that. But I'm really excited about him. I'm really, really excited about him. I think if we can give him a good run of games, then I feel that he, obviously a different position to Dack, but I feel that he could be a really good player for us. So yeah.
Do you know what as well, Chris? I think that's really important. I'm glad you mentioned Joe Bode, because as much as I think that when teams in League Two that have a lot of money and have the money to buy make these statement big signings, that high profile players that have won promotion from this level before, or started at this level before, or played higher. I think sometimes you can fall into the trap of loading your squad up with those players. And actually, where does your youthful exuberance, your bit of fresh energy, your fresh legs, where does that come into it? And that's where I think the players like Joe Bode can actually be just as important, because
Yeah, no, I totally get it, Matt. I totally get it. It's like, but then do you think that maybe like that coming back, I think it's been mentioned before, like he could possibly be Mark Bonner's, was it Wes Houlihan when he had him at Cambridge?
yeah, I mean, very possibly. But I was actually wondering whether Johnny Williams could be
Yeah,
Mark Bonner's Wes Houlihan as well.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, we
you could
could.
actually be Wes Houlihan's.
Welsh international, mate, and he's played in the Premier League. He's played for like a Premier League team.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's quite funny, because you think that you look at Johnny Williams and you think, you know, end of his career, but he's not. He's only 30. He's like 8 years younger than me.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Do you
but
know
yeah,
what? I was actually on the Gills in the Blood TV about a year ago, and we were actually having a laugh about Johnny Williams, where I couldn't believe he was only 29 at the time. I think he might be 30 now, because I assumed that he was older. He kind of looks older. He looks a bit more like a veteran, but actually, I keep forgetting he's only 30 odd.
yeah. No, he is. He's literally 30 years old, coming up 31, I believe.
Mhm.
Recently got married, and he's a lovely bloke as well, because you know,
Congratulations, Johnny.
in League Two as well, like we've got the luxury of the players don't think they're bigger than what they are,
Mhm.
and you know, you can literally walk past, well, stand outside the factory, and they're there after games, before games. You can have like pictures with them, talk to
Yeah,
them. They're just such nice people. So
brilliant.
yeah, you don't necessarily get that in the higher echelons of the league,
Of
but
course not. No. That's the beauty of League Two, isn't it, Chris?
it's amazing, mate. It really is. It's such a connection as well, and I think Brad and Shannon have kind of brought that in as well. You know, the fact that they're so like welcoming with the fans. They will sit in the factory. Joe Comper will sit in the factory, and we can all go up and say hello, and you know,
Yeah,
it's nice.
it's a
You'll
present.
never get. You're never going to get that in. I don't think Championship, maybe Premier League level, isn't it? That it never happens. But
Interesting. Do you think if Gillingham got promoted to the Championship under the Gallinsons, you'd be able to keep that element of the club? Because I really hope that you do, because I think it's such a special thing.
I think, mate, I think the way that they are,
Mm.
and the way that they come, I don't think they're going to change.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
you know, I think they get it. They just get it. Like, as a Gillingham fan, all you can say is they get it. They
yeah,
understand the fans. They understand the club. They understand the need of what we need, what everyone needs, and they just get it, mate. They just get it. So I don't think that. I don't think that it will change if we got to the Championship. Even if we got to the Premier League, it will probably change in a financial perspective. You know, like the ticket pricing and stuff,
Mm.
which it will have to. It's hand in hand, isn't it?
Sure.
But I don't think that they will change as people. I really
Yeah.
don't.
No,
So
that's lovely. No, they seem to be so engaging and pretty much the dream really as the owners. I think there's lots of clubs around this sort of level that would really envy having what Gillingham have. And do you know what? I almost feel like there's more of an optimism or more of a feel-good factor now than, or even, regardless of the results since the Gallantons came in, than there was when you were in the top half of League One. Because when you're in the top half of League One, it was Steve Evans was kind of just about getting the best out of a kind of limited squad, but it never really felt like there was a structure in place, a process, a plan, a vision, a culture, if you like, from the top, that really felt like, yes, there's something sustainable here at the back end of Paul Scally's reign. Whereas I think under the Gallantons, it feels like you can dream again. It feels like there's that sense of optimism, and I'm so buzzing for you, mate, because I think that's what we all aspire to at this kind of level.
Well, you do as well, mate. I think I did an interview with Paul Fisher a little while ago on YouTube, and he kind of said that he kind of touched the blue light paper in a respect where, the man who shouldn't be named, but I will name him, Paul Scally, didn't really do. He wasn't really in touch with the fans.
Sure.
And then, Fisher came in. He kind of started that, and he kind of got it going again. And then
was he the one who brokered the Gallinson deal?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. So all credit to him, really.
Yeah, and and I think they've just continued that on. I mean, Joe Compa doing the Amani Little thing outside of Costa in the High Street. It's just, a lot of the.
Just talk to me about that. What was that one?
So when we did our third kit site reveal, so they took Shad Ogie into the High Street in Gillingham. Oh, yeah. And they said that it would be at 12 noon, right? And it was kind of like, oh, are you trying to start a fight kind of thing? So they brought Shad out to reveal the third kit outside of the Costa in Gillingham. And because it got so popular, Joe Compa was like, well, as soon as we've given you a third shirt, we might as well give you a new signing. And then Amani Little came walking down the street.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Stuff.
But it's so
because that's
like,
the kind of thing that just brings the club into the heart of the community, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. But that's fine. So we're move on to yesterday's lineup for Gillingham.
Sure.
So we had Jake Turner in goal, Romeo Hutton, Max Amer, Shadrach Ogie, Max Clark, Robbie McKenzie, Amani Little, as we've just spoken about, Jack Nolan, Jaden Clark, Johnny Williams, and Jacob Wakelin. Substitutes: Glenn Morris, Ash Giles, Harry Waldock, Jules Lapsley, Ollie Hawkins, Marcus Wiley, and Joe Bode. So I don't think we've got many other options at the moment. And I don't mean this in a nasty way as a club. Like, we have 7 or 8 injuries at the moment.
Sure. I mean, because if you look at it, you've got Giles, Harry Waldock's a right back, right, isn't he? I think Giles might be a centre half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. And then you got Joe Bode. And I would say those 3 players would possibly have been loaned out. And then other than that, you've got George Lapsley, who I think in a different circumstances, along with maybe Ollie Hawkins, could have been offloaded this summer. You've got Marcus Wiley, who's stepping up 3 or 4 divisions. And then you've got a 40-year-old goalkeeper on the bench who's still, I'm sure, still a reliable backup. But it's not an awful lot in terms of depth. So I imagine you'll be really keen to get some of those players back from injury or to sort of beef up the squad.
Yeah, I think we would. I think, I think anyone would want Glenn Morris in their squad at League 2 level. Like, he proved last season when he came in against Wrexham. I think that was his first game back, and then he had a stint up until the Harrogate game when we had a howler. And then, Jake Turner came back in. But even at 40 years old, I think he's the cat. That's his nickname. He's the cat.
He's the oldest cat in the world, you could say. Normally they only live up to about
more than 9 lives.
15 to 18, don't they? So for him to be 40, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, and he was brilliant last season when he came in. He came in because Turner was injured when we played Wrexham at home, and he came in and he was absolutely phenomenal. Like, he saved a shot off the line, and then we ended up winning that game 1-0 with Dieng scoring in the second half. So yeah, but I just think it's very difficult at the moment with our squad because we've got two of our main strikers out. You know, you've got Josh Andrews and you've got Elliot Nevitt. They're both out. So Jacob
How long
Wakeling,
there? I think Andrews is meant to be long term, isn't it, Chris?
I think that it's not. I think it's actually a little bit less than Elliot, but it is still
Okay.
like 3-4 weeks away. The problem I have with that is, we signed Josh Andrews when he was injured from Birmingham, your club, and then he was on loan at Accrington, wasn't he? But then we signed him. We signed him from you guys. He was injured, but it wasn't meant to be a transfer for this season. But we managed to get it over the line before the season, as Kenny Jackett's already alluded to. I think that I'm not worried about Elliot Nevitt. I'm not worried. It's just an injury. Mark Bonner seems to be playing quite hardball with him in pre-season, so injuries are going to happen. I just think that with Josh, I just think it's a bit. He gets injured quickly and takes long to recover.
Yeah. Well, do you know what I think is a bit of a possible, where it's not ideal to my eyes, Chris, is that I look at Jacob Wakeling and I see him as more of an inside forward rather than an out-and-out striker. You look at his role in one of the goals on the opening day against Carlisle, might have been the third goal, don't quote me on that, where he sort of, there was a kind of turnover and he just glided past the opponent, and I think he might have slotted it in, and is the kind of thing you can't really do if you slap bang down the middle. It's the kind of thing you want to glide in from those wide areas rather than necessarily you give him the ball to feet in back to goal. Like, what's he really going to do? So I do kind of worry a little bit about that, unless you've got loads of opportunities on the turnover where you're slipping him through constantly. But to be honest, Gillingham are one of the favoured sides. You're going to face sides that are going to try and be quite compact and deny him space. So I'm actually wondering if maybe for now Ollie Hawkins is the better offer, because I saw a couple of the chances that you created at Morecambe came as a result of having him as that focal point, and he can obviously be that physical presence in tight areas.
Yeah, I mean, we will get on to Ollie Hawkins and Jules Lapsley and everyone else later on. But the Jacob Wakeling one, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it was the second goal. It was straight after the kickoff against Carlisle. It was the second goal, and he just running. It was Owen-esque, wasn't it? The way that he did it. It really was. It was just the way that he, like that little darting run and the little chip over. It went under his arm, but it's very Owen-esque the way that he did it for me. But yeah, so
I think it was more Salah-esque. The other side, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So we just move on to the first half. I mean, it was a bit of a non-event. I think we had 3 shots, 1 on target, 3 corners, fouls in the final third, 0. There was quite a cagey, and you know what? I will admit this. Like, Morecambe they've signed 15 players on one day. Well, they didn't actually sign 15 players. They had them as staff, but they could only sign or actually put it on the dot the I's and cross the T's and everything else on one day. So I was actually quite impressed with their performance in the first half, because everyone's got them dead certs to go down.
Yeah,
and they actually gave as good as they got.
If they had any manager other than Derek Adams managing them, they would have been in my bottom 2, because I think on paper this is a Gillingham podcast, not a Morecambe podcast, so I can say this. I think it's on paper the worst squad in recent League 2 history, because there's lots of players in terms of the ones that they've signed who just would have been nowhere near an EFL offer if it wasn't for Morecambe's particular predicament. But because Morecambe are basically shopping almost a National League North kind of level market, or certainly lower end National League, there's players who kind of got their opportunity, and with that, I think that there does come this opportunity, I think, for Morecambe to create a kind of siege mentality, if you like. I don't know if that was something you picked up on if you went, Chris, but I think, normally for most EFL clubs, it's like, you'll have a bit of a moan about some of the signings, or you'll get fans, oh, why are we signing such and such player? But I think with Morecambe, because basically everyone's against the owner, Jason Whittingham, but everyone's behind everyone else at the club, and they've actually got quite a good day-to-day operation. It basically means that the whole fans, if I say, the players they've signed are not good enough for the level, they'll come back at you and say, no, they are good enough, we're going to do it, kind of thing. And there's a real siege mentality about Morecambe, which, with a manager like Derek Adams, who's achieved well above, budgetary resource in the past, that could lend them to a possibility of staying up, and they can on their day actually maybe be a tough nut to crack for certain sides, and maybe that was the case on Saturday, where possibly a goalless draw would have been a fair result.
Yeah, I think it probably would have been a fair result. They had a couple of chances in the first half. I think it was like 2 clear-cut chances. Jake Turner was forced into a good save, to be honest. And yeah, it felt a bit flat, to be fair. It didn't really, you go there and you think, oh yeah, Morecambe aren't going to be that great this season, so we could go there and turn them over 3 or 4-0. After getting carried away after the Carlisle game, I guess we kind of all could have been excused for thinking that, but they did in the first half. I think we only had one real good chance. That was Johnny Williams again.
Yeah, it was a good effort from Williams, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, what I'm wondering, Chris, is it's interesting. You're on maximum points now, which is great. If you were looking at performance, how would you kind of rate performance level? Because you were super clinical against Carlisle, but I think there's an argument that 4-1 maybe flattered you a little bit, and that Carlisle had some good passages of the game, and they threatened, and could have been different on another day. And then for Morecambe, they kept it tight, and you didn't create so many chances, and Morecambe could easily have got themselves a point. So I'm just wondering how great in terms of results, brilliant to be on maximum points. Where do you feel you're at from a performance perspective?
I mean, apart from the second-minute goal by Dieng in the Carlisle game, the first half we weren't really at the races at all. And it was quite finicky, wasn't it? It was quite up in the air. It was quite, launch it long kind of game. I think that when we got to the second half, Wakeling's goal kind of settled us down a little bit.
Right.
Then you also have, and I don't like to keep talking about previous managers because I get absolutely battered for it by certain aspects of the fan base. But if that had been, if we'd have gone, if Mellis had scored that goal and made it 2-1, under another manager, we would have closed up shop and then just defended. Where the thing that I like is the fact that he brought Joe Bode on, he brought Jaden Clark on, and we actually just went front foot. And I think we really did in that game, and I think that's probably what helped us. Johnny Williams came on as well and scored that absolute beauty.
Oh, yeah, strike, wasn't it?
But under another manager, and to be fair, even under Neil Harris, I'm a massive fan of Neil Harris. We would have closed up shop and been tucked in and been like, oh, and then started panicking. And it was quite refreshing to see a Mark Bonner team, like the first Mark Bonner team we've seen, really, and in that. We've gone, okay, we're 2-0 up. We've then gone to 2-1. What are we going to do? And we went on the front foot.
I think that's one of Mark's strengths as a manager, and I think he's very adaptable, and that goes for in-game changes as well. And I think he's a bit of a man for all seasons, and he's very good at reacting to problems, I guess, and troubleshooting them and finding solutions, really. And I've always felt like he builds really well balanced sides that. For instance, the Cambridge side that got promoted had Houlihan feeding Joe Ironside and Paul Mullin, where Ironside was doing a lot of the graft and a lot of the running, and it kind of freed up Paul Mullin to poach. So you had this beautiful, one number 10 and two centre forwards. And then actually, once he got into League One, he realised he needs a bit more defensive insurance. So he's just somebody who's kind of able to adapt to circumstance. And again, I think maybe you're seeing that a little bit with his in-game management, because even though the squad hasn't been at full strength, you've still been able to use what you've got to your advantage in both games, with improving towards the end of them, which can only bode well, or bode well, should I say, for when.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, we've both got the quick today, haven't we?
I know, absolutely, yeah.
But no, I do think, it is, like I say, we were on the front foot after we went 2-1 up. Well, we were 2-1. Mellis scored the goal. We were still leading the game, but we went on the front foot, whereas two managers previous would have probably dug deeper and gone. And do you know what? It was quite refreshing as well. We didn't play great on Saturday. We weren't good against Morecambe. There is no qualms about it. But you also have to take into context, we have had a horrible week in travelling. Like we've, 4 or 5 hours to Swansea on a Tuesday night, then back to Gillingham. And then, 8.5 hours?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, would they have had to have come back to Gillingham at like 5 o'clock in the morning or something?
Yeah. But then we've got to come back. Then we've travelled back again on Saturday. We've got to come back to Fleetwood on Saturday again.
I do wonder if there was a part of Mark that was, could I just put the under-18s at Swansea and have a full clear week at preparation? I do wonder if that kind of crosses a manager's mind sometimes.
Well, I then also wonder as well, because I think there was a game last season, we played Barrow on the Tuesday night in Barrow, and then we came all the way back.
Yeah. And
then we went all the way back again on Friday or Saturday morning to play Salford.
Oh.
And you're just like, a part of me thinks, okay, yeah, all right, we've got a little bit of money, but could they not have just stayed in a hotel?
Yeah, that's interesting. Could you have is there like, if you've got a relationship with a club in the Northwest, could you have maybe trained for a couple of it? Because that would have helped, but sometimes that's not possible. That was what I was going to come to you. If you don't mind me sort of telling the tables on you, Chris. We've talked about sort of some of the mitigating factors behind why the performance levels haven't quite been exactly at the level that we're hoping for. One of them is travel. Another one is injuries that have kind of limited the squad a little bit. But I'd love to ask you, Chris, where do you think Gillingham need to improve to make sure that the results continue to stay at a high level?
I think we need more cover at left back.
Okay.
I think Max Clark, he's great. Don't get me wrong, and I really love the way that he's pushed to be first choice now. Like last season, Scott Malone was there. I felt a little bit bad for Max because he was brought in as first choice, and then Scott Malone become available. When who turns down Scott Malone?
Sure,
really at League Two as well.
Yeah.
So he's then fought his way back into the team. I think halfway through last season, maybe just past Wrexham at home, he started coming back into the fold a bit more. He's been brilliant. He was my man of the match last game against Carlisle. He was my man of the match.
You know what you're going to get from Max Clark, aren't you? I think he's a very reliable, consistent League Two left back with a great work ethic and solid defensively. I guess, maybe a left back that can bring a bit more pace, a bit more quality, perhaps, dare I say, although I think Max can swing in a decent cross. So someone that can bring a bit more flair, dare I say, to the left back spot and maybe Oh, sorry.
Idris Kanu.
I thought he was a more attacking player, Idris Kanu.
He is. He's more of a left winger, but he can play a left wing position.
Okay.
I watched him quite a lot last season and the season before, and to be fair, I think he could do left wing back in a back five. He could probably learn how to do a left back position, proper, like a full back. Right. I think that he can also play on the left wing, and he likes to cut in onto his right. which is good. Having inverted wingers, I think these days are the way forward. It's just whether his weaker foot, if he was to be pushed on the outside, would be favourable. I'm not 100% sure, but there was 100% talk about it last week, and Joe Compass come out and said that it's fake news, like it's not happening. But I've spoken to Matt from Gills in the Blood, like even last season, I've been messaging him going, we need to sign Idris Kanu. We need to sign Idris Kanu. And his numbers fell off a little bit after Christmas. But that was, as I've recently been told, that was due to a lot of injury. I don't know, I've got a fly on my head. I've got a fly there. Yeah, his numbers fell off a little bit after Christmas, but as I've since been told, like a lot of that was due to injury. But I really do think it's a difficult one, because then you look at it and you think, okay, we've got Aaron Rowe, we've got Jaden Clark, we've got Jack Nolan. Do we really need another winger?
Yeah, not another winger. I think maybe another attacking left back, because you need, or as an option at least, because against those deeper blocks, perhaps, it can be really difficult for the wingers to show what they can do sometimes, because there's not always the space to cut inside, whereas there is a space if you've got a really attacking left back that's posing a threat on the outside, and that can kind of create space and make life a little bit easier. So hopefully you can maybe loan someone in, possibly, to be that more attacking option.
Yeah, that'd be great. If we could, if we can, if we can't, we can't. You know, we can't, as Gills fans, we can't really complain about the window we've had. I mean, if you've got a Gills fan that complains about the window we've had, then why are you supporting Gillingham? We signed 4 players before the window had even opened, and good quality players as well. To the point, if Jack Nolan scores 15 plus league goals this season, I've got to go full kit on the last home game of the season, because that's what I've gone with it now. So that's what I've got to do.
Nice.
So, but yeah, no, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the options that we've brought in. I'm really excited about, it's a win-win situation with Marcus Wiley. I think he needs time, not rushed in, and I don't think Mark will do that, and he hasn't.
Is there a world where he gets loaned out, possibly to the National League or the National League South?
Yeah, why not? Like, at the end of the day, and we will get on to it in a minute, but Ollie Hawkins is still there. I can't see him getting in the squad over Ollie Hawkins at the moment. And this is coming from someone who's not the biggest Ollie Hawkins fan. I wasn't last season. I think when he came back from injury, I felt a bit sorry for him, because, he had that injury with his heel. Was it his heel or something? He then came back, and Ollie Hawkins is never going to set the world alight, is he? Let's be honest.
Sure.
He's not that kind of striker. He's a rugged, get in there, ball to feet, lay it off, few headers. He's never going to set the world alight. But I think the way that Stephen Clements was trying to play did not suit the way that Ollie Hawkins plays. You have to use him the way that I see Ollie Hawkins. You have to use him as like a Peter Crouch type. Like, he's not quite as tall, but he's get the balls into him and they get his head on it. The same, he proved it. He proved it on Saturday. He proved it on Saturday when he had a header and it hit the bar. Like, he proved it against Swansea where he scored. Like, if you get them balls into him, he can use his head. But playing it to feet, the way that Stephen Clements liked to play, and I'm not taking anything away from his style of football. I think he didn't know the limitations of the players. I think that Clements was a bit, I'm going to try and play fancy Premier League football in League Two. You can't do that. There is certain ways you have to work.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been one factor with Clements was he didn't have a full summer to recruit his own players, which isn't ideal. I think sometimes it's difficult for coaches to implement their ideas in season. So I look at somebody like David Artell, who I'm a massive fan of at Grimsby. He actually had to compromise his ideals temporarily just to keep them out of trouble. And I think it's difficult to come in season, implement your ideas whilst working to a brief where it's like you've got a challenge for promotion. So I do have some sympathy for Clements from that point of view, but I also can see how you'd have wanted to have seen a bit more than was on display.
Yeah, you do as well. And I mean, he didn't really endear himself to the fans as well. I think that was half of the problem. I'm not saying that the business decision to get rid of him was anything to do with the fans, even though, contrary to popular belief, some fans had an input on this. But I think that if you've got a manager that's willing to connect with the fans, willing to be on the level with the fans will give them more time. Like there was never any connection with him, and
Well, I think that's what Mark Bonner's probably done really well. Is he's certainly done at least one sort of fan podcast, if you like, your fan channel in Gills in the Blood, and I'm sure he might have done one or two others as well.
Yeah, he's done ME7 as well.
Yeah, he's done ME7, so it's like immediately. And then this is the thing that I think Mark Bonner does really well. I had him on my podcast when he was out of work. He does have a willingness to put himself out in the social media kind of world, if you like. And what I'm really impressed by him is he's got this ability to kind of be down to earth and likable and make a connection with people and just talk about football really. But then also there's times in conversations where he feels like he needs to show a bit of authority as well. And I think he can do that as well. And I think that is really the perfect balance for a modern manager, having that bit of personability and the ability to connect with people, which is a really important part of management. But then the ability to sort of take a bit of authority sometimes and take control and and show that side. And I think if you can get both, then you're halfway there to really commanding the dressing room.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a fine line though, Gabe, isn't it? I mean, I'm a manager. I've been a manager for years, and not
football
or business. No, not football management, but management in itself, like it's still exactly the same.
What line of work are you in?
So I'm in hospitality at the moment, but I used to be assistant manager at Sports Direct and everything else. And
right. So you kind of have the same challenge as well in terms of leading people and all that side of things.
Yeah, so there's that line between being their best mate and them taking the mickey, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think Mark Bonner gets it. I think he does it well, and he's so refreshing as well. Like just the way that he speaks, and we get onto it in a moment after we discuss the second half a little bit. But yeah, he just gets it, mate. I mean, even the Gallatins get it. Mark Bonner gets it. I think it's a marriage made in heaven, really, between a lot of them. And come the end of the season, I could be wrong, but at the moment, and we all live in the moment, we have to live in the moment. I think that he's absolutely brilliant. I really do. And the way that he speaks, he's just absolutely phenomenal. Like, he's so down to earth. He's so with it. He gets it. He just gets it. So, but anyway, we'll move on to the second half. Again, not really much going on. Stats are on the screen for anyone that wants to see them. But we will just talk about, I think, the moment of.
Well, let me ask you, Chris, George Lapsley, because feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a possibility that George Lapsley could have gone this summer. And I suppose technically the transfer window is still open, but do you think there's, because of the injuries, that have maybe increased the likelihood of him being in the squad? Obviously, being an attacking midfielder is difficult because you got Johnny Williams there and you've also just signed Bradley Dack. But has he got an opportunity there to show, hey, I can offer something different to this Gillingham squad?
I think, well, he proved it on Saturday, didn't he? That was a typical George Lapsley goal, really, I think. He scored many like that, to be honest. I just think it's going to be hard for him You know, and do you know what? I feel really bad for him because since we signed him, he's never really got a run in the team. It's always been, 2 weeks, to play 2 games, out injured again. Another game, out injured again. It's not a slight on him, but he's never got that consistency going within his game when he's been with us. We have not got the Jules Lapsley that played for Mansfield. Like we've never seen that Jules Lapsley. We've seen it in glimpses. But he's never done it consistently, and it's not his fault because, like on Saturday, the corner came in. It came out to like Jack Nolan, who absolutely shanked it. You have to admit, like it wasn't a cross back to Romeo Hutton. That was he shanked it across. Romeo Hutton's then played it into Shad. Shad's then taken a turn and had a shot. Keeper saved it. Come back out to Jaden Clark. He's played it across, and it is a typical Jules Lapsley goal, really, isn't it? Like,
well, do you know what I like about this squad this season, though, Chris? Is I feel like you've got a lot more quality out wide this year because I look at your squad last season and maybe the year before even. It felt like I don't know. It felt very dry in those wide areas in terms of pace and quality. And I think last season you saw Johnny Williams shunted out wide, which is never really his game. And this year you've got Johnny Williams, but he's surrounded by quick players like an Aaron Rowe or like a Jack Nolan or players like that. Clark even as well. And that's kind of stretching the game for Johnny Williams, even with somebody with striker ahead of him. That's kind of opening doors, and actually his quality could start to come to the fore. So it feels like you've got more pace and quality out wide, which could be a big plus.
Yeah, no, we definitely have, and I think as well with Amani Little in the middle, I think we suffered a little bit last season as well with the pace from the middle. With no disrespect to Timmy, but Timmy's not the fastest player in the world. You then didn't really have much going forward with DJ. DJ was good at bursts, but when he was fit, and he struggled with his fitness. I think, Ethan Coleman's never going to be on the front foot running forward. He's the safe, sensible, sit back, play the the defensive midfield role.
When's Ethan Coleman going to be back fit? Do you know?
So I spoke to him at the Carlisle game, and he said 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. Because that's going to be a big plus because you've got him to come back, and I think Jake Reeves as well. Because if I look at again, do you exert a bit more control on the game at Morecambe on Saturday if you've got Jake Reeves in midfield, stroking things around, switching the play, pinging those diagonals, which isn't really Armani Little's game. So maybe that could make a difference as well. So you've got options to come back.
Yeah. We've got options to come back. I think Armani Little he can be he is a box-to-box player. He's not a holding midfielder. Since we've lost Dom Jeffries, we don't really have that. I think that could be a position.
Okay, I talked about Jake Reeves and he's a winner.
Yeah, that's why I was sitting there. Like, I was trying to.
You know what it was? It's because he played alongside Armani Little at Wirral.
Yeah, that's why I took a minute, and I was just like,
"Oh my god, that's an absolute nightmare for me." There. Oh my goodness, I'm never going to live that one down.
EFL Expert, everyone.
The mask is slipping, Chris.
Yeah. No, that's what I was just a little bit like, okay. I'm going to go with this. I'm not going to correct him.
No, you didn't. That's very sweet of you. Oh, gosh.
But no. Since we've lost DJ, like he was kind of a burst of energy when he was fit. Johnny Williams, I think can play that position, but he's better suited attacking. Timmy Dieng, he's good. I like him in the position, but I think again, like going back to what you said, if we needed to strengthen anywhere, maybe another centre mid. I know, not an attacking centre mid, but a centre mid. it's all very well and good, and we will get onto this. Actually, it leads us nicely onto after the slide of full time and talking about centre mids. Actually, my viewing focus this week is Mr. Robbie McKenzie. All right, so I think that Robbie McKenzie is a jack of all trades, a master of none. Right, this is why versatile players for me don't necessarily work out, but, and there's a big but, right? He was absolutely phenomenal against Morecambe. Like,
really?
the stats don't lie, really. Like, he was just there. Like, he's come in to replace Ethan whilst Ethan's been injured. Obviously, started the season there. He was okay against Carlisle. I don't think he was amazing against Carlisle, but I think on Saturday against Morecambe, he was just there like constantly
So
alongside
here's a
Marnie.
question for you then, Chris. Let's say Robbie. Who have you got next, by the way?
We've got Fleetwood.
Fleetwood. Okay, so let's say Robin McKenzie puts in the same caliber of performance in against Fleetwood, and then Ethan Coleman returns the following week. Is there a case for starting Robin McKenzie alongside Armani Little and actually bringing in Ethan Coleman off the bench and sort of easing him back in, but actually giving Robbie McKenzie that opportunity to nail down his place? You know, the meritocracy of it.
Well, you have to think like Ethan Coleman's pretty much missed the whole of pre-season. So you're not then going to rush him. I wouldn't think Mark Bonner would rush him back. I think he's still, you know, it's all very well and good him saying to me against Carlisle that he's 2 weeks away. But 2 weeks away from being able to be picked is different from being match fit. He's got a lot of catching up to do. And I love Ethan. I think Ethan's brilliant. And if I had to choose a player out of the two, it would be Ethan. But, and it's a big but now, because Robbie has definitely got himself in that fold and in the conversation, as you say, to then be first choice over until Ethan gets back in. But then you've got to look at it like they are different kind of players, right? So Ethan's a bit deeper. Robbie likes to push a little bit in that position, but I think that I personally think that it's going to take Ethan more than 2 weeks to get back to fitness. It's going to take him more than 2 weeks to get back to anything. So having Robbie there would be, for me, perfect. Just have him, just leave him there. Like he is very versatile. He can play at centre back. He can play at right back. Like if he's asked to, he'd probably play at left back. Like it's, you know, he's one of them players. But I'd say the versatility of some players for me is kind of their downfall, because you have to think, you know, you're jack of all trades, master of none. It's the same with Ollie Hawkins. Like, you know, he's a striker, but he can play at centre back. So like, what is his best position? So it's a difficult one to put your finger on. But I was blown away by him yesterday. I mean, it wasn't a great game, but he was, for me, man of the match and by far the standout. Like he was brilliant.
Wow, well done, Robbie McKenzie. Gauntlet placed down well and truly.
So yeah, but we were gonna move on to the fan zone, but it looks like we've got like 2-3 comments. Like no one's really. I've got one from Matt. Okay, so still not convinced by the Dack signing. Great for nostalgia, but not great on the bank balance. Okay, cheers, Matt. Yeah. So I think we can end it there, Gabe. To be quite honest.
Well, it's been great to have you on. Really appreciate you having me on. Just for anyone who's kind of enjoyed this, just like to point you in the direction of my Twitter at Gab Sutton. I tweet lots of opinion starters for EFL Club, so you can kind of get involved. Normally 8 o'clock on weekday mornings, other than Tuesday when there's sometimes games. So you can follow me on Twitter at Gab Sutton, and also, as you can see there, for those watching this, I don't know whether this is in podcast form as well. You can follow me on. subscribe to the hashtag EFL Debate, which is also available on YouTube and on Spotify. So you can go and check that out. And a lot of EFL content. The League Two podcasts every Thursday normally at 7:30 live, and then you can watch that on catch up. So thanks a lot for having me, and good luck to the Gills for the rest of the season.
No worries, mate. No, thank you for coming on. And as I say, with us, I haven't got anything on the screen, but you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, The View from the Medway, the Facebook channel, The View from the Medway, and the X channel, TVFTM. So, with that said, another good weekend. We look forward to Fleetwood and up the Gills.